Hey everyone, it's Abby and welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, I wanted to share with you my 2022 planner and journals review. So this is something I do actually every year because I never really use the same journals and planners, and I want to walk you through the different systems I've used. Make sure to check all the timestamps for the relevant info, and I've categorized them accordingly so it's easier to browse through or check out which part of the video you need, or maybe you want to watch the whole thing. So grab some coffee or tea. I have my coffee right here, and let's get started. So first things first, I actually have everything on this Notion post, and if you want to access through this summary, make sure to be part of our Patreon art club because I have this out there. So if you want to check the written version and more concise pointers, the link is down below, or you can check patreon.com/abc. It's one way you can support my creative journey and this channel. First you see here is actually, spoiler alert, I didn't finish this, but this is the 𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚔, and it's the A5 Slim, and it has a weekly vertical format. Actually, I had hoped I would finish this, but it just so happened that all of the things concerning this kind of format just didn't work with what I had in mind for my schedule. So you can see at first I did do some plotting with like the habits, and I think that sort of worked for a while, but eventually I found it such a chore to actually organize everything like every month. And then once you have that, this was the monthly. I did use it for a while for Patreon and for specific deadlines, but because February was kind of chaotic for me because I moved, I had to really readjust things, so it wasn't as ideal as I wanted to. And then let's move to the weekly vertical. So I can't zoom it in because these are confidential things, but as you can see, I did work through it at some point, but for some reason, as the months and weeks went by, I think the space was just generally too narrow. Like, I have to know exactly what I have to do, because if not, I'm going to waste that space. And this, it has timestamps, so for me, it kind of felt a bit limiting, and I was really forcing it to work, but to some extent, it just didn't work out as much as I wanted to. So for example, as you can see here, I do plot in schedules, but I always have this like, am I going to do this day? And I'm not 100% sure with everything I do because I work for myself. So I think this kind of setup is actually good for someone who doesn't have like changing schedules a lot. So if you have very set meetings, and also if you don't have anything very detailed to write in, because for me, I tend to write a lot of notes, and I know some people use the biz for like, or 𝚘𝚘 in general for like decoration and stuff, but I actually have a separate journal for memory keeping. Another concern is when I travel, I don't bring this with me, so some pages and spreads end up being empty. So actually I only finished this until July, or before July actually, and I wish I had spent more time like working through this, but I was at the point where like, oh, it's not gonna work, so I didn't really find it useful. And the last thing I want to share is I tend to have a habit of planning the entire week, at least like from Monday. And because some things change, it could be a me problem, but since some things change, it just didn't work for me to just consult this journal regularly. Planner rather. I get confusing two of those things. And also, this checklist on the left side was pretty helpful, but again, it's really so small and narrow that I feel like I feel so constricted in like putting out ideas to write on, so that didn't work for me. So I replaced it with this one, which is funny because this was not the main reason for it. This is a Hobonichi Techo 2022 original Sunday start, and I actually have a review on this which I'll link down below so you can check it out. So I use this as like my daily planner kind of. So I have my monthly view over here, and I don't have a Hobonichi cover, so I just used the Ollie clip that one of my friends gave me. And actually I started using this in July, and I found it pretty useful because this one day one page situation ended up being something that worked to my advantage. Like on the left side, I usually have an idea of what I have to do, like specific schedules, and then on the right I have a to-do list that is always like on the go, so that for me is really just easier to come by. So yeah, I've been using this until recently, so I found it to be really useful. And sometimes I decorate it, sometimes I don't. I don't really force these things anymore. So yeah, this is what I use to replace my Ǧibun Techo Biz. Next up, we have the Hobonichi Weeks. So actually, I first decided to get a Hobonichi Weeks as like a tarot journal, but that didn't end up becoming the case. And now it became like a habit tracker / life log. So actually, I wouldn't say it's a planner, but it's categorized in a planner format. So I'll show you what I did. So for the monthly, I sort of got the idea from my friend Chingai. She would write the TV shows or she watched, or like films or books. So that kind of worked for me. And I also like organizing around certain color schemes, as you can see here. However, that was it. I didn't really have anything else to write because my plans are on the planner, in the planner. Otherwise, the weeklies, my initial comment is I think this is really too narrow for me. If you're someone who uses the Hobonichi Weeks on the go, it's great, but actually I use mine as like a recap of life and like certain things on my mind. So I liked it for a time, I would say, because I wanted to experiment on fountain pen ink. So that was one of the reasons why I got the Hobonichi Weeks, because number one, it's fountain pen friendly paper, and number two, I list down the inks at the end of each spread. So actually every week it's different. Like there's a green one and then there's a blue one, and I just found it to be a really good way for me to figure out, okay, like color coordination, what's this, like stationery, and how everything sort of meshes together. But as I mentioned, the space could be a little bit too small. Also, like for more fountain pen related things, like if you use a broader nib, for example, this one was like M nib, it just tended to be a bit thicker and it was hard to write stuff on. But if you use like a very extra fine nib or like super thin, it's fine. And one more thing is, I actually don't bring this with me when I go out, so I found it to be kind of pointless about the small size. So if I had brought this with me like as my everyday carry, which it isn't, I feel like I could have assigned it to that department, but it wasn't. It just didn't really work out as much as I liked. So here are a few more pages, and it's funnily enough, like a lot of people really like my Hobonichi Weeks pages, even on Instagram. But yeah, I felt like, should I still get it so I could like use it as content? But honestly, no, I don't really want to do things like that for my account. So I just decided to let this go starting next year. But I'm still updating it as of now. It's just not as often as I want to, because when I travel, again, I also don't bring this with me when I travel. So like for example, my SF trip has been kind of like on the backlog for a bit, as well as my time in Manila, somewhere here. Yeah, see, it's still blank, so I still have to organize that. However, I do like visiting it from time to time, like decorating. This is one of my favorites, I would say, because it's like very autumnal, and some of my friends gave me some stickers to use. But yeah, so far I've been enjoying it as still a habit tracker and like just a recap of things, but it's not my favorite at the moment. So I just wanted to finish because I feel like I've used it to the brim already. And also at the back, I actually write my tarot card readings. At first, it worked out, but eventually I found it to be chorey, so I stopped doing it for a time. This is my 2022 like manifesto. I think I kind of worked some out, but yeah. And then here I used to do also, where was it? My monthly reports. Where is the monthly reports? But I feel like I haven't updated it as diligently as I wanted to. So I used to do these monthly reports, and it sort of like encapsulates the month in one page so that I can do like a recap at the end of the year. But I haven't updated like August, I think, and September. See, it's still here. But yeah, I was okay with it. It's just not my favorite, and I feel like if that's the case, I don't really wanna use it for the next year. But it was a good run. I feel like compared to how I used to use Hobonichi Weeks, which was like kind of, I made it kind of like a slam book and it was really like chunky. This actually isn't that chunky, so I'm kind of proud about it. So next we are on to journals. So this is the Diarist, which is the journal that I created, and this is my second Diarist journal. So the last one I used, the first one I used was late 2021 when I first got the Diarist, and this one was the one that I started with 2022. Initially it was kind of, yeah, I have a lot of backlog and stuff. It was great, like back home when I was still in the Philippines, I really used it up to the brim, partly because I had a printer with me and I just like documenting and I really got into the groove of it. So actually the first few spreads are like my establishment spreads, like this is my words of the year spread, and then this is like my recap, monthly recap spread. It's kind of like a bullet journal actually. And then this part is reading that Practical Magic gave me for my birthday. Then this is the 2022 calendar. And then we go to the daily pages. They're not daily, but I call them daily. Like I just highlight specific days of the month, which was great because I think it's always like a good exercise. Like for example, this was my birthday week and I don't really want to just do like daily updates. I have a separate like private journal where I just jot down what's on my mind. But the thing that really got me a bit off track was actually, when was that? Towards mid-year. So you can see a full recap of this journal tour actually on my Patreon. So it's for my journal tier members. But mid-year, like starting the time I moved to Germany up to like July or something, I was on and off updating here, mostly because I had another journal that was my Berlin travel journal. It was a bit sad because I just used this as like a recap journal and it wasn't the main journal anymore, because I felt like this should be the main journal because this is what the main purpose of this was for. I experimented also with the photo printing sizes. As you can see here, this was like the small, I was in my small photos phase. It was great, but I think I want to dedicate this journal for more things that are very mundane and daily. The one thing that I could have done more is use up the prompt stickers, which you see here. These are the prompt stickers. So these are the ones that are included in every order of the Diarist, and obviously I'm still doing my backlog because see, I still have like unfinished pages. But since like October, I've been like early October, I've been like doing the rounds of getting my groove in journaling here, because I really know how, I mean, I made it, right? I really know how everything works if I have the prompts in. So this was one of my favorites for autumn. I did like a Life Lately update as well as a book review for Daisy Jones and the Six. And like I just incorporated all the things I've known to work for my journal spreads, especially for this A5 size because it can be pretty big and it's really borderless. So you just have a lot of freedom to just, you know, write and put in stationery and stamps. So I like that I incorporated a lot of brush lettering and also some quotes, and also the inks sort of like work in its favor. So I did something similar here. I have a whole like Fleetwood Mac face at the moment, so I have that there, and like a little journaling habit. So I have a few more, yeah, I kind of have a lot more, so I feel like I want to finish this off until December so I can like close off this book and start a new one. So next on the journal lineup is this again, but I'll show you the earlier pages actually. So this one initially was going to be my sketch journal, I guess. It existed for this purpose before because I wanted a way to like document my life in black and white and in drawings and lettering. So the main problem that I had was I put too much in one day. And then that sort of improved when I tried to experiment more and like keep white spaces out. And I also had fun because these were like my ways of like getting back into lettering somehow. However, this is really tiring because apart from this, obviously, you know that I have other journals that I maintain. So I think I stopped like sometime in like April. After writing the days of the week in German, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be over. And actually I use the spare pages. I still use them actually. I use them for fountain pen ink swatches. But yeah, I ended up replacing this because the main issue was this is dated and I don't know, I feel like I don't really have something to draw daily. So I got myself this MD Paper White sketchbook. I don't really know if it's a sketchbook, but it's from Traveler's Company and I really like it. So actually this is my second insert. The first one was not spiral, so it has a lot of black and white sketches and life in Berlin. I really enjoy documenting this as like a diary that's drawn, like I call it actually drawn and documented. So as you can see here, there are a lot of little anecdotes and stories, and I updated this like really well over the summer. I'm still catching up as of now. I think I'm in August or something. So yeah, this is like my little outlet for that, and I try to be very freehand with drawing here. I don't really overthink. I don't know if it counts as a journal, but for me it is like my documentation of my life here. And yes, at some point I do want to turn it into a zine once I finish like maybe the entire notebook, but I think it's gonna take me a while because it can be pretty thick actually. So I like that also it's kind of sturdy, so it's really great for taking it with me. Next is this Hobonichi plain notebook. Actually, in the lineup video, I didn't put this in, but I decided to get it impulsively sometime in January. So this is my media journal, and you've probably seen a lot of the media journal with me videos here on YouTube. I actually haven't updated it as much, but here are some of the pages that you've probably seen from that video. My main concern was the photos that I use, like the posters that I print, they tend to warp the paper in some inconvenient way. And I get a bit OC, but look at that. It's kind of warped in that sense, and I'm not a huge fan of it. I think I've managed to make it through like almost half of it. I mean, this is like typical Abbey things, like fountain pen ink smudges. So this really pissed me off, so I haven't finished it since. So I'm actually way behind. Like these were the ones I watched, I think, in July. And then some of the books I read in August, so I have yet to update them. Did it spark joy? Yes, but there's always a but, right? I think I would have kept the reviews shorter because, guys, I'm not a movie critic. I like writing about them, but once it gets to a point that it feels so chory, I really can't deal with it anymore. And the second issue that I had was actually, I think if I would do a media journal again, I would use an A5 or the Traveler's Notebook Regular, just because the size was just too small. So for context, like if you're writing with something like this size, it's just like the hand. For me, it's just not as ergonomic as I'd want it to be versus like an A5 or like a Traveler's Notebook Regular like this. So yeah, but otherwise I had so much fun working on this. Maybe I'll do a flip through once I'm done with everything so that you can also see the shows that I've watched. I mean, I highly recommend doing a media journal. Maybe not in this format, but something similar would be great. Like printing out the posters were actually fun, and also like matching the colors, so I really did enjoy it to that regard. And last, in the journaling category, I actually added this insert sometime in mid-year. I did a lot of like analyses, and I also changed up some formats. So actually I adopted this format for the first time because I wanted to try it out. But before that, this is a little autumn journal that I'm doing, so you'll see a journal with me video soon about it. But this is a half trip refill one actually, and this is the weekly vertical one, but I only got the one from July to December because I wanted to try out the format. And honestly, it was a bit redundant because I have the Hobonichi weeks, right? So this was like a more visual version to it, which I really don't mind. I just found it to be kind of redundant that I had to do two. Like I have to update my journal and planner every week atop of everything else that I'm journaling with. So yeah, it was like, it went to that point. So I think that's why I really prefer doing these reviews, because future me will also want to check it out. So this insert has like a monthly view. So for the monthly view, I mean the year view rather, I actually highlighted the days that I was traveling so that I could see from a year's glance like, oh, this is how much I traveled. So yeah, I mean, this 2020 was like I guess 1/3 of the year I was like traveling and exploring, which was, I think, good. I don't really want to travel extensively. I didn't really update this. I wished I had. I'm trying to think of a better way to use up these overviews, because I'm always just particular about the weekly setup. So this one has no monthly overview. If you mean like the boxed months, it's a separate insert for that, and I'm actually getting it for 2023, so more on that soon. But when I started, I really wanted to make sure that this just encapsulates small highlights. It doesn't have to be super like, oh, today this happened, that happened. So I actually enjoyed it because it allowed me also to play around with different collage elements, with packaging, and this was my replacement for my Berlin travel journal. So this was like more of a life log, and I enjoyed it so much that it felt like something I just did second nature. Does that make sense? Like, it just was second nature to me rather to just update this, and I put like very important highlights like meeting friends, like ordering, like trying out this specific thing from the grocery. And it's very mundane, but I actually enjoy it because it allows me to organize my week. Well, number one, in terms of the color schemes, as you can see here, the colors are still matching, but at the same time, it also allowed me to play around with this vertical format. I found it less limiting versus the horizontal, like weekly memo format. This one was just like, you know, the lines are not so harsh, so you can actually cover them. And for me, it really helped me like position things. In some way, this served as like a collage exercise for me weekly. And, you know, I don't really organize things like every week has to be like this or that. These are literally the things that happened that week. I just paste it in and then see how things go. from that. So I really enjoyed it, and this was the one that I actually brought to my trip. So I brought it to the US, and it was like a no-brainer to just update it. Like, I saved packaging, you know, tags, you know, letters from friends. And oh, this is one of my favorites actually. So here I feel like this more like an orange-green situation, then here it's like all blue. So it was very handy to take around, and I really enjoyed just, you know, putting in key things. I don't even worry about like, oh, I don't really have anything to write today. I just do have something to write. And yeah, so this one sort of acted as my favorite way to journal about the little things. And as you can see, I'm still very much into my color matching tendencies, so that really was that was confirmed in this journal. So yeah, I'm pretty much up to date. I think this is my favorite because of the warm, cozy colors. So yeah, I still have backlog to do, but generally I really enjoy it. I'm definitely using this, and it was a great exercise to try. I hope you're still with me because we are down to the last category. So these are the recurring ones. They kind of look similar to the original lineup video, but actually they're different ones already. So first is the Traveler's Notebook Passport. Now, in early 2022, I had decided to make this like a content log, which kind of still worked, but also I realized that I only need like a pocket memo for that. So actually I use a field notes now to do that, which I'll show you in a bit. And also I sold my TN Passport Camel, and I got myself the limited edition records passport size instead. So this is an Ace Hotel insert that Chingai gave me, and let me see if I can share with you some not so confidential stuff. These were the things that I wrote, like packing, going to Berlin. It was kind of chaotic. Like, I had to write every single thing I owned because I had to make sure I had everything with me. But the first few pages were actually like visa info, appointment info, like all the important stuff that I could have written on my phone, but they're actually existing here. So I used to bring this with me everywhere. And then now we have this dot grid insert that I don't know what I will do with it. And this was the content setup that you've probably seen in my previous video. So I used to plot out my months here. I even tracked my subscriber count for a time. I think the last update, yeah, my last update was like July. Maybe I have to get back to that, but we're 50 plus now on YouTube, which is cool, 50k plus. I don't know if this served its purpose. I don't know what I'll use it for next time if I would get it, but I really do like the orange color of it. So this TN Passport is also currently just parked. Parked means I'm not using it at the moment, so I just have it on display, but I might use it again next year. And then this one, I actually used to own a Rode web notebook, but it's right back home. I decided to not bring it with me because I wanted to close that chapter and start a new notebook here. Before using this hardcover one, I used to own a sage colored softcover Leuchtturm, and then eventually I moved back to a hardcover one, which is, needless to say, way better because sometimes I journal on my bed. I just want something sturdy. So this is my journal. So of course you will not see a flip through of this as usual, but it is basically my therapy and outlet, and I tried to use just a series of inks that I am using. I actually exclusively, most of the time, use my Pilot Custom 83, aka my favorite pen, next to my Sailor Manio pen. Actually, I love both of them, but this is my OG favorite, and it's the first expensive pen that I bought, so I'm really treasuring this. It's already a year old, would you believe that? So yeah, that's all for my journal and planner review. If you have any more questions about it, let me know in the comments. And as I mentioned, you can find the entire outline on Patreon, as well as most of these journals I have shared on Patreon. Let me know what you're planning to get next year. I'm actually working on a video for that, and I plan to divide the video because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be long. One thing I always say is, like, when I get into journals or when I use journals or planners, I try to really put it to a point where I will find it useful, and I don't want to excessively buy things because I don't know, I'm not a maximalist, I'm also not a minimalist. I can be in the middle somehow, but I always find purpose for everything I own because, I don't know, that's kind of how I'm wired. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this cozy, I'm just saying cozy because of the candles and stuff. I wanted to set the mood also while filming this, so it's less depressing for me in my case, because it's my first time experiencing sort of like seasonal depression, so any tips would be great as someone who used to live in a tropical country. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to this planner and journal review. Everything is going to be in the description, so you can check those out in case you're curious to know more about the journals I own, the planners I've used, journal flip-throughs, and whatnot on my YouTube channel. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Always be creating. Bye!